consistency and building that lifelong habit. Strength training should be a part of all of our life. We should continue it. We don't have physical jobs like we used to hundreds of years ago. Most of our jobs are pretty sedentary. We sit around most of the time, so our bodies need to move.
Welcome back, Neven, to the D8 Training Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Miriam. I'm pretty excited today because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about a topic that I really enjoy. So if I get off on tangent and speak too technical, just let me know. I'm happy to bring it back.
We've had a lot of clients and listeners come in with questions, and it's all been around strength, muscles, gym, workouts, and I knew that you were the person to go to.
Yeah, you know me well.
Thank you to all our listeners and clients that have sent through questions. I'm really excited about them because they're probably things that I've wanting to know, but I never thought to ask. Neven, why do you have muscles?
This is an interesting question to start the conversation on.
Yes. Think about how you want to answer it.
Very interesting. I think depending on throughout my career, it's always been something different. Probably when I first started out in the gym space was around performance, making sure that obviously it was helping with my sporting goals, which was soccer. And then as I progressed throughout my career now more as a personal trainer, I think aesthetics is certainly a part of that, making sure I look the part. But underlying to that is performance is underlying my muscle gains.
I thought it was for me so that you could help me open jars in the kitchen and lift all my heavy furniture when I want to move it around.
It actually does make me feel pretty good when you're like, Neven, can you open this jar? And I can just come around and open it. So it's always a good feeling to have.
So when you're in the gym and working out, what's more important? Trying to get stronger in the gym or walking out feeling tired?
And it's a great question. For me, and I think where the priority is for most of our clients and what I believe the real value is, I think the goal of strength training isn't just walking out feeling tired. You may feel tired, but I think the key component has to be progressively building your strength over time. And I think that's key. Like I mentioned, feeling tired can be a byproduct of hard work, but it's not the primary measure of success.
So what you're saying is I can do a workout for the whole session and I might not walk out feeling tired and I've still had a good workout.
Yeah, it depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to focus on that day. You should still feel like you worked, but you shouldn't sometimes walk out of there feeling like you're gassed and you're about to pass out. Although sometimes that may be a conductive workout, it just depends on what we're targeting. Majority of the time we want to walk out of there having done a little bit more than we have in the past. So the way I kind of like to refer to it is progressive overload. So what that means is it's either you're lifting a little bit heavier, improving your technique, or increasing your reps compared to the workout that you've had previously. And I guess, feeling stronger over time is actually a better indicator of progress than just chasing that fatigue after each session.
What you're saying is to improve on each session. So whether I go a higher weight or if I do the same weight, more reps, or even at a slower pace, but just pushing my body a bit more.
Yeah, that's kind of categorized as progressive overload, and that's the key with strength training is we want to be doing a little bit more in, it could be in all three of those areas, or it could just be one of those areas.
Well, what about those days when I feel like I'm not as strong as I am most of the time? Is it okay to go down in weight?
Certainly, and you will find that, generally if I look at kind of our existing client base and with working with lots of clients, I tend to find about 70% of the time, you'll feel a little bit better, you're able to go a little bit more. 10 to 15% of the time, you'll actually feel really strong. And they're the days that we can just go, pretty much any weight that we throw at you, you'll be able to do. But then on the other end is you'll have that 10 or 15% of the time where you just come in and it's just not there. On those days, do the best that you can. Sometimes it might be a bit of a deload or it might be picking a different exercise, so slightly modifying it depending on your goals and your experience. But don't beat yourself up. Don't just go home, go through the work, do the best that you can, and then come back next time and try and obviously beat that.
Well, my theory is there's no bad workout except for the workout that you don't do. So just coming in has that benefit.
Exactly, and that's a win in itself.
Tell me why I should get stronger. What are the benefits of getting stronger?
Well, for me, there's several benefits beyond just the muscle gain, obviously the physical and the aesthetic aspect. First of all, it improves bone density. Secondly, it boosts your metabolism. And it basically enhances overall functional fitness, making daily tasks easier, like we mentioned, opening that jar or lifting something heavy that you may need to. It also reduces the risk of injury, especially as we age. A side note, and I think it's a lot more popular these days, is the mental aspects of boosting confidence and resilience via strength training. And if you look at the other end, and I spoke about that earlier from a performance standpoint, in athletes, strength gains lead to better performance. And for everyday people, it supports, longevity and overall health.
You mentioned metabolism. How does it, did you say boost metabolism?
Yeah, it means that even while you're at rest, so the more muscle you have, the more energy is required to maintain that muscle even at rest. It requires more calories as a byproduct, obviously more food, so it means you can eat more food by having a higher metabolism.
I heard a stat that after strength training, your body's still burning. But do you remember it?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to, I think it's EPOC, exercise post oxygen consumption.
Yeah.
So after you do a particular workout, especially if it's a resistance-based or a strength-based workout, your body is still burning energy to recover from that workout, which can last anywhere up to, I think, 36 to 48 hours. So while you may have burnt, let's say, 400 calories in a particular workout, you may still be burning another 200-300 in that 36 to 48 hour window, which will kind of obviously increase the overall metabolic effect of that workout.
And that's when I do strength training and lifting weights. Does
Correct.
that apply to cardio as well?
No, it doesn't. With cardio, it's basically what you've worked out for that particular period, and then that's it, especially a steady state cardio.
You mentioned resistance training, and I feel like that's the buzzword at the moment in the fitness industry. What is resistance training?
And it's a really good question because there is a lot of interchangeability when it comes to some of these terms. Resistance training for me involves any exercise that actually causes your muscles to contract against an external force. So this can be through weights. You can use things like resistance bands or rings or TRXs, as we do here, or even your own body weight. The goal is to really challenge your muscles, which obviously over time leads to an improvement in strength, endurance, and ideally muscle tone as well. It's really versatile and suitable for all fitness levels, from beginners all the way to advanced athletes, because all you just really need to do is modify the intensity of the resistance that you're using.
So the resistance is something that I'm pushing or pulling against.
Correct, yeah. And like I said, sometimes it can be your own body weight because that may be enough resistance for you, but as you get stronger, you may need additional load.
Okay, so like a push-up.
Correct, yeah.
And what's the difference between resistance, weight, and gym training?
A lot of people use them interchangeably, and they are slightly different. A lot of the times, someone might be saying resistance training, but they might be meaning gym workout, as an example. So for me, resistance training is, and like I mentioned before, it includes an exercise where you're working against a resistance, whereas weight training specifically refers to using external weights, like a dumbbell or a barbell. So you're using an external weight. And then gym training can include both of those, because you might be doing some form of resistance or weight training at the gym, but it can also include things like cardio, machines, or group classes that they might have at the gym, because it's more of a broad term used for anything that you can basically do at a gym.
So weight training is almost a form of resistance training, whereas resistance training is more broader because it doesn't have to include weights.
Correct, yeah, but you're generally using some sort of external load. And then gym training, like I said, could be cardio. So it may not have the resistance, it can be, basically anything you can do at a gym. Cardio, machines, resistance-based exercises like push-ups, or using dumbbells and barbells for exercises.
So what's better, using free weight machines when building strength?
I prefer a combination of both, and I think both have their place in a good strength training routine. Free weights like dumbbells and barbells promote more functional strength as they engage your stabilizing muscles, and it allows for a more natural movement pattern.
What's functional strength?
So strength that's more relative to the real world. So picking up something off the floor, moving a pot plant as an example, carrying a heavy luggage, carrying lots of groceries out of the store. So more functional things that you can do in the real world, as opposed to doing something in the gym. A good example is a bench press. That's not really functional strength in a way. Yes, you're building up your muscles that are going to help in the real world, but most of the time it's very rare that you'll be at home and you'll be doing that type of movement. But machines, on the other hand, they provide a more controlled environment, because usually you're locked into the movement that you're doing, which can really be helpful for either beginners, because it's a low learning curve, or people recovering from injury, because then you're not having to work your stabilizing muscles as much. There's not as much coordination required. So I think a balanced approach is really good, of using both free weights and machines. It really depends on your goals and your experience level, but also some versatility. Sometimes it's nice to change things up and do different movements.
What do you prefer?
I like both. I think for the bigger movements, I prefer, and most of my training is around, I'll say dumbbells, barbells, but I also like machines on various movements as well.
So now there's lots of at-home workouts. Like I mentioned earlier, doing any workout is better than no workout. However, if we do have the option of doing an at-home workout or going to the gym, what do you recommend?
I'm always a big fan of prioritizing going to a gym, whether it's a small privately owned gym like ours or whether it's a commercial gym. I think it depends on what your goals are and what your preference is. While at-home workouts are convenient, I think the gym offers a more structured environment, and I think that's designed for more optimal training. And you get access to specialized equipment, ideally professional guidance if you're working with a personal trainer, and also a community, like-minded individuals who are trying to improve themselves as well. So I think that's really important to help motivate you and push you in the right places. And I think just a variety of machines and free weights available gives you a better program that you can do at a gym, which will give you better results.
I like the gym and the D8 classes because I come in, the program's always done, the changes continually. It's never the same session 2 days in a row. And then people push me. Like last night we're in a class and one of the ladies was bench pressing. We're like, come on, you can go higher. I encouraged her. But it also had that positive influence on me and the other girl to go higher as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. The energy of others working hard around you can really be inspiring and help push you to give your best effort.
I know there's still a bit of a stigma around strength training and people associating it with bodybuilders or athletes. It is changing a little bit. I know that gym can benefit everyone. Could you share some of the lesser known but incredibly important benefits of strength training that apply to everyday life?
I think one lesser known benefit quite often is how it improves posture and balance, which will reduce the risk of falls and injuries in just, I guess, general everyday activities. It can also help with mobility and flexibility. So making, things like we spoke about lifting groceries or playing with your kids easier because you're able to get up and off the ground quite a lot easier. And then probably quite often is a little bit more popular these days is strength training really boosts mental clarity, can really reduce stress, and can even help you improve sleep. I always used to refer to it like sometimes when I worked back in ITs, you'd have a hard day at the office, you'd come home and I'd go out to the gym, iron paradise, whatever you want to call it, and the weights wouldn't talk back. You can just come in, you can just do as much as you want, go as hard as you want, and they don't talk back, and it just gave me that mental clarity that I always really enjoyed afterwards. That was, from a mental aspect, I think was really big for me.
Unless your wife came in and started talking to you about her day.
Yes, at which point I would politely put my weight down, pay attention to her for a little while, and then get back on with my business. So,
what do you like about having muscles and strength?
I think for me, it's, a simple one we spoke about it, boosting your metabolism. I'm able to eat more food because I have, a higher metabolism. That's a nice little perk. And the other part is, for having the functional fitness. I view personal trainers as a responsibility to be in a leadership role. So not only do I need to have the knowledge to be able to help my clients, but I think also I should be leading the way in the way I guess I look and I function as well. So that's why I mentioned before around performance. So for me, even though I'm about to turn 41 in a couple of weeks, for me, performance is still important. I still want to be able to move, be able to go to the park, still beat my son in a race, hopefully for a little while longer. Just have those little performance aspects, I think, as well.
I definitely agree with that. And I think it's fun being able to play in the park, do monkey bars with the kids still and run around.
Yeah, exactly.
So having muscle mass, we've mentioned, is important and it can impact other areas of our life like health, metabolism, as you spoke about, or joint health. Can you explain that a little bit more, how muscle is related to improving that?
Yeah. So increasing muscle mass does boost your metabolism, like we said. Obviously, you can burn more calories even at rest, which will actually help support weight management. Quite often it makes it easier for people to maintain their weight. It also takes pressure off your joints, so it reduces wear and tear and can prevent or alleviate conditions like arthritis. As we age, a lot of us will start to, build up arthritis in certain joints, and strength training can really reduce the pressure we have on those joints. Mentally, strength training does release endorphins, which will improve your mood, reduce stress, and I think build self-confidence as well, because you're doing things that are challenging. So for me, it's kind of that holistic approach to health, benefiting your body and mind in lots of different ways.
Yeah. And I like what you said, how it takes the weight off the joints, and especially having that extra body fat and not working out. That's a lot of extra weight that your knees and your feet have to carry, which does make them tired. Yeah,
a lot of exercises, especially when we're not using external resistance, so things like chin-ups, become very difficult if we're carrying a lot of excessive load. And you've seen some of us in the gym, when some of the clients do chin-ups as an example, they're able to add additional chains to make that resistance harder. Whereas some people are naturally carrying that with the, additional body fat that they have, which makes those movements a lot harder for them.
Not that my weight fluctuates too much, just sometimes between summer and winter, I put on a couple of kilos, and I do find in winter it's a lot harder for me to do chin-ups than it is in summer when I'm that little bit lighter. Mental health, and you talked about how it releases endorphins. And I want to touch on this because this is a real major topic at the moment. Approximately 1 in 5 Australians aged 16 to 85 experience a mental health condition in any given year. This includes anxiety, depression, and even substance abuse. On top of that, I said 1 in 5 Australians in any given year. The studies that about 75% of Australians will experience a mental health condition. There is growing evidence that strength training positively affects mental well-being. Can you go into this a little bit more?
I'm sure there's lots of more extensive answers from my viewpoint and my personal experience in this space. I think strength training really does have a profound impact on health. And it's very often I'll get lots of clients that'll come in here and I'm like, how are you going? How are you feeling after being here for a couple of weeks? And they'll say things like, I feel so much more confident. My mental clarity is really improved. I've even had clients come out and say, hey, I feel a lot more comfortable around people because they're obviously, challenging themselves. They're working out in a group and it just improved their mental confidence as well. So, I can never underlie the mental health aspects. From some of the more technical terms, it helps reduce stress by releasing endorphins, which are kind of your body's natural mood lifters. And regular training can also decrease symptoms of anxiety and depression by giving you that sense of accomplishment and control, over your own body as well. From a third point is the discipline and routine that actually come with strength training promotes resilience and mental toughness. It'll help you face life's challenges with a more clearer and more positive mindset because you've instilled a new habit that you're able to maintain and you have that confidence that you can do that somewhere else in other areas of your life as well.
From a personal perspective, I'll sometimes be, whether it be a work task or even a challenging time for kids, and I'm like, okay, I can't get this, I can't figure it out. But being able to reference the gym and saying, hey, I was able to do, 3 chin-ups this time, or I went from squatting 20 kilos to 22.5 kilos, and having those continual reference points, makes me feel better. And discipline, I think, is the big one. I might miss a gym session here and there, but 90% of the time I'm structured, which goes, okay, yep, no, I can do this, I can do it in the gym, and then it flows on to other benefits of life.
Correct, yeah.
So what is the right age to start strength training?
There's lots of different answers when you look at the literature and online. I believe that, kids can safely start strength training from around as early as, 8, and sometimes even, to be honest, it's probably even earlier. I think the biggest challenge when you've got a kid that's a little bit earlier is just to be able to focus for that particular exercise, but also for the duration of that workout, whatever long it can be. The focus for younger kids needs to be on proper form, technique, and obviously lighter weights. At that age, it's really the foundation is building good habits for them, building healthy habits, getting in the gym, and just focusing on the basics on what they need. Obviously, the exercises need to be age appropriate and supervised. We don't do anything specialized at that age. It's just general movement. As for older teens and adults, I think the benefits of strength training can be maximized through, like we mentioned, progressive overload through more and more challenging workouts as they increase their abilities.
Kids actually start strength training from the moment they're almost born. We give them little toys and that they're holding that. Then as they learn to walk, they go to the park. There's the monkey bars. They can lift themselves up and work through it. But so in terms of coming to the gym, you recommend from about 8 years plus? Yeah,
from 8 years onwards is, like I said, I think is more than safe to be able to do it. Most of the classes that we run here are generally from 10 onwards, mostly from that focus standpoint. I tend to find kids at 8 and 9, they just want to have fun. They still want to run around, so they may not have the ability to focus for that period. But in saying that, we've got some kids that come out here that are 8 or 9 and they're really laser focused. They know what they want and they see the gym as a way to help them with their sport. And in that space, I think those kids are ready for it. But in general, I think, over 10 is a great starting age where kids have got enough of an attention span. They're able to understand how this is going to help them from their viewpoint.
Yeah. And what benefits are there from kids doing gym and building muscles from a young age?
So, building muscles at such a young age, one, will strengthen bones. And by building muscles, we also ease the pressure on tendons and ligaments, during sports. We mentioned that as from wear and tear as we age, but in the earlier years, obviously building muscle actually helps alleviate some of that pressure that our tendons and ligaments have to do. Very common, we'll get a lot of kids that come in here when they're going through a growth spurt, anywhere between the ages of 10 and 14, and quite oftentimes at that point, their tendons, ligaments, bones are growing rapidly and their muscles aren't keeping up with that progress. So oftentimes they'll get sore knees, sore ankles, sore hips or low back. And we often see by just slowing them down, building a little bit of strength, building a little bit of muscle can actually help alleviate some of that discomfort that they have. It also helps improve coordination. It improves their body awareness. And these are all critical during physical development as kids are growing. So quite often you'll see is as kids go through that, what we call that lanky period where they're growing really fast, they start to become uncoordinated. They don't have the ability to control their bodies like they used to. And a little part of that is also building up that strength And quite often parents will come in and they're like, oh, he just, he moved so much better last year. This year he's gone through a growth spurt and he's just not moving as well. He's looking really uncoordinated. And sometimes it's just a matter of waiting for those muscles to catch up to get that coordination back.
That's one of the bits we don't consider, how much kids, grow and the effect that it can have it, and looking at balancing it out.
Yeah, correct. We've spoken about it in the past, in previous podcasts, the importance of good nutrition, making sure that at that point kids are getting adequate protein, because most of them not. They need to get good nutrition to help fuel that muscle growth, because if they're not getting enough protein, it's going to be hard for their bodies to build the muscle that their body's trying to do at that time.
What would you recommend for someone that's older? So they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s, and they've never done gym, never lifted weights, so they now might feel intimidated at the thought of starting weights later in life. Is it still okay for them to start training and doing weights, or should they just give up? They're too old.
I think some people would like me to say that, you can just give up and get in, you're too old. But the reality is anybody can start at any age. And I think it's similar to what we've spoken about with the younger ones. If you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even up to 80s, the reality is I think start off slow and prioritize proper form. That's always going to be the foundation. Begin with bodyweight exercises or light resistance. You could use resistance bands or some light dumbbells just to build that foundation. Get used to moving, see how your body adapts. And then I always recommend to clients, see how you feel the next day. If you just started something, sometimes that workout is not the best indicator of how you're actually going to recover. The 24 hours later is going to be a really key determinant to actually, was this exercise too intense for me? And when I say that, we want our muscles to feel like they work the next day. So if you get that muscle soreness, that's okay, as long as it's not extreme, but we don't want to be feeling in the joints. So if you're a little bit older and the next day your knees are really sore, something you did the day before has probably caused that. So you almost want to reverse engineer and try to identify, well, what was it that I did that was new that may have caused me that pain?
So stop doing gym at that point?
I think you need to regress that particular exercise. I think you need that exercise, whatever that particular exercise was, you probably need it, but you probably need the cousin of that movement. So you need something that's a little bit easier, or something that's going to target that muscle group, but in a different way. So, and obviously having experience or a qualified professional there to help you work through that is going to be really important, because most of the time there's an underlying issue at that particular joint, and it's something we want to address, but we just need to address it at your limit.
So one strength training session isn't going to fix it all. I need to do a few.
Unfortunately, that's, and a lot of what we do here, and we spoke about it, is consistency and building that lifelong habit. Strength training should be a part of all of our life. We should continue it. We don't have physical jobs like we used to hundreds of years ago. Most of our jobs are pretty sedentary. We sit around most of the time. So our bodies need to move.
So what you're saying is I can start at any age, no matter if you're 40, 50, 60, 70, it's never too late.
Correct. We know we've had several members join our over 60s group and they've never done strength training in the past, or some have done it in their 30s but then hadn't done anything for a long time. And it's just reintroducing simple movement patterns. And we often get comments, I feel so much better, I've got so much more energy. I was able to get up off the ground the other day, whereas I wasn't able to do that without assistance. So it's just little things like that that really make you appreciate and also realize some of us take things for granted in terms of how well our bodies are at the moment.
And what about people that have had physical jobs? I think about my dad, like he hobbles along now with a sore knee. He's got a few too many kilos. Yeah, definitely a few too many kilos on him. Is it safe for him to come and do strength training?
Yes, but I would recommend go see someone. Don't just try to do it by yourself. You can do certain workouts from home, but the reality is you'll pick and choose what you like doing. And some of those are better than nothing. But if you can afford it, go see somebody, get some qualified advice.
So is this like going and doing one-on-one personal training sessions?
Correct. Or pick small groups, or go see a good physio that you have a good relationship with, because physios will give you a program as well. So find a qualified professional that can help you in that space, and they'll be able to identify what areas you've got pre-existing injuries in, and then give you a targeted program that's going to help you alleviate some of that discomfort that you may have. Like I mentioned, a lot of the clients that come here, they may have pains through most of the day, and our goal is to try to reduce some of those over time.
And look, I've heard amazing stories of people that I've spoken to that have had sore knees or backs and hips, and then they were looking at doing surgeries, or they were on drugs to help ease the pain, and after doing strength training they've stopped completely.
I agree, and I think it's fantastic that we live in an era where we have the medical technology to do some of those more advanced operations, but I also feel like sometimes we're very quick to jump into that with the expectation it's going to be a quick fix. But the reality is it's never a quick fix, because following on from that surgery, you've got a rehab. And usually it's 3 to 6 months of intensive rehab. And sometimes I think to myself, well, had they applied that kind of energy into doing like a prehab So, kind of doing work and strength training before they actually had that surgery. So quite often they realize they probably didn't need to have that surgery in the first place.
100% agree. I'm a big believer, try to do whatever you can beforehand to avoid any type of surgery. I'm digressing now. What they say is a butcher is always going to want to butcher meat, a baker's always going to want to bake, a doctor's always going to give you the medication, or a surgeon will go for the surgery. So have a look at the options and go, okay, what can I try? What can I do? Because there's not one specific person that will give you the answer. How often should someone train to see real improvements in strength?
I think for general population, and if you're a beginner, 1 to 3 times is a really good starting point. So that will probably go for kids and most adults as well. We spoke about it before. Consistency is going to be the key, along with proper progression over time. So for kids, a shorter, more supervised session with lighter weights and a focus on form are going to be ideal. And then while adults can gradually increase intensity over time as they go. Then once you start to progress from that beginner stage into an intermediate stage, which generally is a couple of years, you can start to increase the intensity and frequency to maybe 4 or 5 times a week if you've got more specific goals.
What you're saying with kids, it's 1 to 3 times a week they should train, and with adults, it's 4 to 5 times a week.
For an intermediate level, yes. Yeah. If you're just starting out, 1 to 3 times is going to hit most of the goals.
But what about just maintain? What's something, we're all busy, kids, life, everything. What's something that you'd recommend to your clients?
I think during busy periods, twice a week is generally enough to maintain your current fitness levels. And it's also an opportunity potentially even to increase a little bit. The benefit you'll have is you'll really be able to push during those 2 sessions. So I think 2 is a really good amount.
But what about if 2 is all that I can do? Will I see improvements in strength, or is that just to maintain?
It's usually just to maintain if you've been lifting for a little while. If you're a complete newcomer or beginner, then you will start to see improvements during even twice a week.
So what's the ideal amount?
Again, like most answers, it depends. It really what's after what your goals are. An ideal amount that I'd recommend to clients is 3 to 4 times a week. I think you're able to hit pretty much most fitness goals that you want with 3 to 4 times a week.
So I guess the key is really consistency, coming ongoing, because one session isn't going to do it.
Correct.
2 final questions before we close. What is one habit that someone can start today in the gym?
I think, and we've spoken about it before, consistency is going to be the really important part. A small habit they can introduce is just doing a small achievable goal, something that they're not currently doing at the moment that's going to be related to their fitness goals. An example might be if you're not doing anything, or maybe you just start with a 10-minute walk and you build upon that. If you're already walking, you're doing a little bit of light activity somewhere else, maybe you're doing some cardio or some swimming, then I'd recommend trying to do 10 minutes of resistance type training. And obviously we spoke about what that means. And if you're a complete beginner, just start with something simple. If you don't have access to a personal trainer who can help you, start small. Start with some light squats, start with some light push-ups, and build upon that 10 minutes. You might do that twice a week, and then a couple of weeks later, once you've gotten into that habit, try to build up to 15 and 20 minutes and so forth. And then introduce more movements until you're able to get quite a decent workout in.
I know you mentioned earlier, ideally it would be good to come into the gym to work out. For beginners who are not doing anything, just even movements for 10 minutes a week. And I know today there's YouTube clips that they can watch that become available. Lots there for just 10 minutes and just doing body weight.
Yeah, correct. Like I said, that 10 minutes is not going to get you to high-end goals, but it's a starting point, and then you build on from there. Mm-hmm. The reality is it's the habit of creating a habit that you can sustain for the rest of your life.
Like they say, how do you eat an elephant?
That's right. Hopefully one bite at a time, right?
Good to get more than one bite. Slow and steady, and consistency, like you said, is key. And what does dominate mean to you when you're doing gym?
I do recall you asked me this question, and I think it was more related to what does dominate mean in general, but I like the approach of what does it mean to me in the gym. And I think for me, it means showing up with intent, giving my best effort on that day, and pushing past the limits that I believe that I was able to do within a particular exercise. I think it's about taking control of my progress, being disciplined, and embracing challenges rather than shying away from them if I don't feel that I'm really up for it that day.
Good answer.
Thanks.
Well, thanks again, Neven, for coming onto the show. You're always a ball of knowledge. We spoke about consistency being the big one and the key, and then also the benefits of strength training and having muscles. And it's not just to open your wife's jars. It helps with posture, balance, mobility, bone density. I love that with the metabolism where you're still burning calories 24 hours after doing gym. And the big one, the mental health. I think that's key for anyone coming into the gym. If someone wants to reach out to you, how can they find you?
I think the best way is email or call us, at the contact details on the website, and it's usually all of our contact details, including our Instagram, Facebook, and all the other social media channels. So, we're easy to get a hold of, and I'd love to have a chat to see if we can help in any way.
What's your website?
d8training.com.au.
And Instagram handles and Facebook handles?
D8 Training.
At D8 Training. I'll put them in the show notes. And what about if they want to train with you?
Again, just reach out, touch base, and then we can try and see if what we do is going to be useful to you. Especially if you're not training, I'd like to think that, especially if you're obviously in the Adelaide area, we can help out.
And do you offer online coaching sessions that will allow them to just run through workouts or just have a bit of a chat with you?
We do. I do like to see people in person though, because I want to see that initial assessment. I want to see how you move so we can obviously give you the best program that's going to be most suited for you. So ideally you're able to at least pop in for one session before we go down that path.
Thanks again, Neven, for coming on. And thank you everyone for listening. Please subscribe to the show, and until next time, dominate your life.